Let's talk about astrophotography. Let's talk about astrophotography in the middle of the desert at a pretty cool site called Trona Pinnacles. I'm going to take you on a little adventure today where I basically did some astrophotography with some pretty cool people that I met and kind of show you the rundown of my workflow, how I got all the shots I wanted to get, and basically show you how to survive in the middle of the desert. So Trona Pinnacles is a place that I've wanted to check out for a while now for astrophotography, just because it's got such a unique location and landscape to it. And I was always kind of like afraid of blowing out my tire just driving out there solo. So when the local astrophotography group that I was part of planned out a trip to go out there, I was like, well, might as well jump on it and see if I can like not be stranded solo, or worst case scenario, we're all stranded and we have to be like Mad Max out there for a few hours. A few of my goals for this year was number one, seeing new spots, and two, meeting like-minded people who kind of like the same hobbies I like, for instance astrophotography. So what better way than to go to a site in the middle of nowhere, sit in pitch black darkness for a few hours with perfect strangers with no cell phone reception. So on the ride up, my biggest concern was the cloud coverage. I was afraid that, as we were driving up, the May, Gray, June gloom phenomenon we get, that marine layer that comes over LA and the SoCal area, would basically be sweeping up northeast into where we were trying to go towards. But luckily for me, the clouds were like clearing up as we started driving closer and closer to more of the desert type of spots in the interior of the state. It's really weird because you would expect like warm weather out here, but it's like we get like this massive cloud layer, which can kind of wreak havoc on your like pictures if you're trying to do astrophotography anywhere around the shore. So keep that in mind. So on the road to Trona, or I should say the trail to Trona, basically like my biggest concern was blowing out of like a tire. Like I said before, like I was basically like worried that since I had stock tires, I no longer have like the monster truck tires of my old 4Runner. I was afraid of like blowing out of tires. So basically we had to just like take the road super slow, like 10 miles an hour, in order to just kind of just ride along and just crawl along. Okay, we got off the road maybe close to 20 minutes crawling around at about 10 miles an hour right now, and we still got a ways to go. But just for future reference, the railroad right here that we're kind of traveling along with is kind of a guideline for when I'm returning. But yeah, here it is. Really wish I had my 4Runner though. But if you're like really big into like overlanding, and like you should be able to just take it on, or even have like one of those like sporting motorcycles, like you'll be like good to go, just because like you actually have like a car that's like built for that kind of terrain and stuff. But don't be afraid to drive out there. Like one of my buddies actually had like a Prius, so like if he was able to make it in and out, then you guys should be good to go. Finally, we were able to stop and survey the area, and I gotta tell you, it's a very alien landscape. I mean, you're looking at what's basically the remnants of just like another one of those like seabeds from when California was just covered with these ancient lakes within the the interior of the boundaries of what is now California. So you're actually like looking at stacks of limestone that are just been sitting out there being carved by the wind and baked by the sun to kind of give this very alien landscape. Of course, California cannot be described without describing the wind. So since we were kind of like in this area that's like between the mountains, and we're leaving late spring at this point, you have a lot of this cold air that's like rushing down from the mountains into the valley, specifically where we were staying at. So we were basically going to have to be contending with wind for most of the night while shooting our photos. Now, because the very nature of astrophotography demands stability, since you're taking photos 30 seconds, a minute long, even with like a tracker you'll be doing 2 minutes, you kind of have to look for a spot that is free from wind and free from any vibrations that are going to mess up your shot and kind of lead to some weird aberrations in your photos. So most of the time we got there, we were just looking for a spot that was free from wind and free from like other campers who were going to be driving around their Jeeps, blasting their headlights on at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Those guys beat us to the spot.
Oh no.
But as you first come into it, it's kind of out of the W. We
Yep.
kind of park there, have a fire pit, but then we can still walk to everything. So.
Sounds like a plan then. We ended up finding this kind of patch where there was a bit of a road, but we had this really cool composition where the rocks kind of formed this like W shape. It was kind of like it's like these like rocks, and then we'd basically have like the Milky Way kind of rise and rotate over, and it'd be like a really interesting composition. So that was going to be the spot for a night that we were going to hold down. So it's kind of just like a first come first serve free range. It's like a Trona Pinnacles is very different from like a Joshua Tree or Death Valley, even where there's not really much of a campground. It's just like you just park anywhere where your car's not going to get stuck, and where the wind's not going to like just like destroy your like car paint and stuff. So pro tip, utilize a very heavy tripod and try to kind of be acknowledgeable where the wind's coming from so that you can kind of deflect the wind and not have your camera tripod act like a weather vane. Yeah, don't be like me and like almost break a lens, because I had the wind kind of blow over my camera while I was on one of my lighter lenses I use for travel. And thankfully for me, like the lens hood like saved the camera and took the impact. But yeah, broken on. Good workmanship with your cameras there. Now that we'd finally established where we were going to be staying at for the rest of the evening, I took it upon myself to kind of scout out the area with my mountain bike and see just what kind of formations I could find around the area. So I'll have to like reiterate again, like the landscape here is truly alien. I'm an East Coaster, so I'm used to a lot of like grounded down rocks. Like the Appalachians are just all smooth rock, but out here in California, and even just like most of like the Western US, it's like a lot of just like very relatively new rock, just because like there's been so much activity geologically over the last million years, as opposed to the Appalachians, which are like super old rock. So there's been like a lot more time for erosion and wind and water to kind of grind the Appalachians down, versus here it's like more mountainous. So even here in like Trona Pinnacles, it's kind of like the same thing here. It's like, I guess you can say it's a relatively new spot, and just off the fact that there's not that much water, to kind of like wear it down kind of helps preserve these rocks even more. And due to like the fact that like it just looks so alien, it's kind of like not hard to see why they like did a lot of filming for like Star Trek and Planet of the Apes here, just because it looks so alien. It looks like something like you'd see on like Venus or Mars even. I ended up finding this really cool mine that I thought would look really cool in some photos later on for astrophotography and some light painting. Mine shaft. I'm gonna try to take a picture here. I don't know, it looks cool. I think we're just gonna wing it. This is kind of my first time here at Trona Pinnacles. We made it, didn't blow a tire, and we're getting close to nightfall here, so gonna be trying to do a whole bunch of stuff. Milky Way panorama mostly, but we're just gonna be basically zooming between two sites. There's a little crater behind here that's like better for like wind protection basically, so I'm gonna be sleeping here, but still some pretty cool compositions here. Like here, got some other shots over yonder where the Milky Way is gonna be basically rising over the cluster of all this rock right here. So yeah, we're just gonna see how it works. Let's do it. With the sun starting to set, we set up for our astro shots later on, but also got some blue hour shots too, just because the sky kind of looked really cool. Like it looked like one of those like old school oil on canvas photos you would see, where you know the sun kind of plays around with the lighting in the clouds. You know, like you'll see a lot of times actually in like monsoon season, if you live in Arizona, it'll kind of look just like that, where the monsoons will be coming through and like the thunderheads, you'll see like the bottom of it look really dark. It's a really cool sight to see. After nightfall, we were still some time away from the Milky Way rising. Since we're still in early May at this point, the Milky Way rises at about 2 a.m. However, as you go more and more deeper into the season, so from May, June, July, going all the way up to about September, October-ish, you'll actually be able to see the Milky Way as early as after nightfall. But for right now, if you're shooting in like a situation like, you know, May, you're basically going to have to just contend with the Milky Way rising around 2 a.m. But that actually worked out well for us, just because the clouds we were dealing with, you know, they were still in the area, specifically around where we wanted to shoot the Milky Way. So it was just a matter of trying to buy time and hopefully wait for the clouds to finally clear up by the time the Milky Way came out. So we basically just killed time around the fire and just shared stories and tried to keep warm. And for the first time, I was actually able to even experience for the first time what my buddy referred to as a redneck heater. The redneck heater, huh? Jeez. Oh, man. Yeah, why not? Why not? Oh, no. You didn't spill it, did it? We lost some of the go-go juice. Oh my god. Oh my god, what is this?
Oh, that's hysterical.
So I'm getting... Yeah, for sure.
Gosh, that feels so good.
What? Oh my god. So like right now, there is literally fire. My ass is on fire, guys. Oh, what is this?
Feels good, huh?
It does, yeah. You know?
Yeah, you don't want to put too much, it will melt your chair.
Yeah, you know, I don't want to like fall through and like. Thankfully, I did not burn a hole in my chair. It's actually kind of cool. You know, I've always been really big about like the whole like Western aesthetic, like the Old West. So I felt like I was in like one of those movies, like something like 310 to Yuma, where like even one of like the neo-westerns, where, you know, it's like a bunch of people on like the frontier, just like in like this place that's like, I don't know, like the middle of nowhere. You're like one of like 10 people in like a 100-mile area, you know, or something like that. So it's just like really cool, like being in that kind of scenario like that. With the extra time I had before the Milky Way rose, I set out back to my spot in front of a hole to the mine that I found earlier. I was banking on the ravine blocking the wind for the shoot while I played around with my settings for some light painting. We're back at the mine. We're back at the mine. Okay. Pretty eerie, right? Pretty dope. I've always been a bit of a space enthusiast, and I wanted to get more into self-portrait photography. So I was basically the model for my photos, donning this makeshift astronaut costume that I created, inspired by some work that I saw from Kyle Nutt in one of his videos, basically highlighting doing the same thing. The hardest part was just making sure that the light tube I was using was in somewhat of a concise shape for my exposures, just off the fact that I was having to deal with the remote shutter, as well as also posing and moving the light stick through the air in order to get the shapes that I wanted for my photos. After a few minutes of some trial and error, I ended up getting the shape that I wanted, the exposure I wanted as well too. For this shot, I used an Olympic tube from Tube Tribe. So if you watch any of Eric Parry's videos where he highlights his uses with these tubes from his website, Tube Tribe, it's pretty interesting. You can see a lot more light painting. He's very much a good expert on that. This Olympic tube works pretty well, especially when it comes to astrophotography and Milky Way photography composite shots. For this shot, where I basically make a halo around myself, I used a short Milky Way tube and a long black tube from Tube Tribe in order to make these really interesting halo light trails around myself. I quite like this one as the light fall off, you know, from the tubes. You know, basically it falls onto the subject and it can even illuminate the surroundings a bit to kind of add more ambiance to your photos, and especially ones pertaining to portraits. After getting the shots I was happy with, it was getting close to Milky Way core time, so I traversed my way through the darkness back to the campsite. Now, the cloud cover that we were hoping would end up blowing away by the time the Milky Way core was rising was not blowing away, so that turned out to be a bit of a conundrum. So while we were waiting for hopefully the weather to kind of clear up, we were just kind of playing around with like different types of light painting setups. Our tour guide was basically, you know, climbing up on the rocks in the middle of the darkness and like basically trying to light paint the rocks for compositions that we can basically use for possibly a photo merge with another Milky Way shot in the future. So eventually, you know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock was coming around and the clouds were just not working in our favor. We were trying to move around the campground, see if we can try to find like a different angle, but nothing was really working, and people were eventually getting, you know, discouraged. A lot of people were just going to sleep. I was one of those people who were about to basically go to sleep at around 4 o'clock in the morning. I was packing my camera and my tripod back into my car so I can go sleep. And then I took one last weary-eyed look at the sky to see that the area, specifically where the Milky Way core was at, was just cloud-free. So I just like basically did one last rally, grabbed my camera, my tripod, ran back out, set up, shot like 15-second exposures, like 10 of them. Usually you want to go for about, for my lens, I was using like 14 millimeter. So I was going about, usually about like 28 seconds. That's like what the 500 rule says, but I was basically just shooting for like for about 15 seconds, trying to get the exposures as quickly as possible so that the wind didn't blow over my tripod and like kind of mess it up the shots. And I was basically able to capture this photo. So satisfied that my patience finally paid off, I I retreated back to my car and basically dozed off for 2 hours until dawn break. Boom, welcome to morning time. I saw the sunrise, it was a great sunrise. Should have filmed it, didn't film it, sorry about that, we'll do it next time. But hey, recap. We got the shots at like the last minute, 4 o'clock in the morning. The clouds finally broke out. Clouds and wind that we were contending with for basically most of the night. Wind still kicking up. Dropped the camera, broke the front element of my lens. It's alright, the 14mm, but I think we should be okay. Anyways, ended up getting the Milky Way shots. 15-second exposures, ISO 3200. F2.8, basically with my 28mm on my Z6 II. These little shots right here, last minute shots, so I was really happy about that. And I also got my astronaut shots that hopefully maybe I'll merge. And so pretty much the recap of the night is, did some blue hour blends over here. So later on, astronaut shots, and then finally Milky Way shots with some clouds here and there, some clean ones. So yeah, we're gonna head out of here, get some breakfast, and I'll catch you guys at the in the lab again, office, bedroom, whatever you want to call it. Peace. Lessons learned: invest in a heavy tripod. Understand that if you're going to go out to the field, this is basically just like really rugged conditions, so be aware of that. Your camera is going to probably be in danger of getting smashed if you're careless like me. Don't be careless like me. Have a lot of patience. You know, a lot of times when it comes to astrophotography especially, you're basically relying on the weather to kind of work in your favor, but you know, sometimes you just kind of have to play around with the you know, whatever you can. Maybe get like a blue hour blend and just get like a Milky Way shot later on down the line. Or just be patient like me and kind of just wait out the clouds and stuff, because sometimes they'll like clear out later on in the evening. So all in all, it was a pretty fun, successful trip. I liked it a lot. Trona Pinnacles, I can definitely add it to my list, my I guess location bounty list. I definitely want to check out like more spots. You know, like White Sands in New Mexico is definitely a really cool spot where it's like white quartz and it looks really interesting in a lot of you know, Eric Parry's shots with his light painting. So I may add that as like a list for later on in the season to check out. But if you guys found this video informative and entertaining, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Post a lot of my light painting and astrophotography content on my page, Derouge Productions. I'll put a link in the description. And other than that, I'll catch you guys later for more videos. Peace.